If I told you that after 3 consecutive wins, the chemical state of your brain could start to resemble that of someone who has consumed some cocaine, would you still sit back down at the charts? Not because trading and cocaine are the same, they are not, but because both can overstimulate one shared circuit in the brain, the reward system. And when that circuit becomes overactive but shuts down, is not your logic, it is your access to it. You still know the rules, you still see the risk, you still know you should stop, and yet you click. This is where the distraction loop begins. After 2 or 3 killing wins, your brain doesn't just see profit, it updates your identity prediction. You no longer see the market as a sea of probabilities, you see it as a reflection of your own sudden mastery. As dopamine floods the synapse, your prefrontal cortex, the part of you that manages risk and consequences, starts to go offline. You aren't trading the charts anymore, you are trading a chemical high. That is the paradox of performance. The market does not always lay a trap when you are feeling weak or tilted. The most lethal trap is built when you feel accurate, powerful, and finally in sync. Because in that state, your brain quietly removes risk from its internal simulation. You think you are seeing the next big move. In reality, you are just blind to the possibility of being wrong. The danger isn't the market. The danger is the neural state you brought to the screen. That neural state has a chemistry, and this chemistry operates on rules that most people completely misunderstand. Before you can master your actions, you must decode the molecules driving them. One of the biggest mistakes regarding brain chemistry is this. People think dopamine is pleasure. It's not. Not in the simple way people use that word. Dopamine is closer to a signal of salience, prediction, and pursuit. A fast internal message that says, this matters, watch this, move toward this again. So after a streak, you are not just feeling good, your brain is tagging the market as highly relevant, highly charged, highly worth chasing. And the moment that happens, your decisions stop being clean observation. They start being pulled by a nervous system that has already decided this matters more than it should. And here is where it gets dangerous. The market does not stimulate this system only when you win. It stimulates it when the reward is uncertain. It starts the moment you click buy or sell, because entry is a gamble on probability, and that pure uncertainty fires the system. Or when price almost hits your target, or when P&L flashes green, then pulls back, then flashes green again. That pattern is called intermittent rewards. In plain English, inconsistent payoffs that keep the brain locked in. And intermittent reward can create phasic dopamine spikes, very boosts of motivational signal, not because the trade is objectively good, but because the uncertainty itself is energizing the system. So the trader thinks, I'm reading opportunity, but often what he's really reading is volatility hitting his reward circuitry. Now the brain has a problem. It cannot stay repeated reward overdrive forever, so it adapts. It starts lowering sensitivity. Part of that adaptation involves reduce due to related signaling. If that sounds technical, here's the simple version. The same reward no longer lands with the same force, the same setup, the same candle, the same win, but less internal impact. Like the first cigarette hitting hard, while the 10th barely changes how you feel. This is not weakness, this is protection. Your brain is trying to preserve stability by turning down the gain on the reward system. But that protection has a price. The price is a lower baseline, a flatter normal state, less drive without stimulation, less aliveness without action. This is where traders get confused. They think they need another trade because they found another edge. Usually that's not what's happening. What they call conviction is often just a baseline crash, an internal drop that feels like a boredom, emptiness, irritation, restlessness. And the next trade is not always an attempt to make money. Very often it is an attempt to escape that state, to feel sharp again, to feel alive again, to feel something again, and this is the edge. The danger after a streak is not excitement by itself. The danger is that your reward system has started to distort your decision architecture. Your risk feels different. Your timing feels cleaner than it is. Your edge feels smarter than it is. So the real question is no longer, why do I want another trade? The real question is, what state is making another trade feel necessary? Because the trader who can detect that state early stops feeding it. And the moment you stop feeding it, you stop confusing chemical urgency with market clarity. Because if you do not stop feeding that urgency, the chart can start functioning like a feed, just like scrolling through Instagram. Not because trading and scrolling are the same activity, but because the brain can run the same search pattern through both. One more candle, one more setup, one more check. It sounds productive, it feels responsible, but sometimes it is just scrolling in a financial custom. A different screen, a different story, but the same neural loop. To the conscious mind, these behaviors look separate, but to the reward system, both can become one instruction. Keep scanning, keep searching. Maybe the next one is the one, and this is where the trap gets stronger. The brain is not only pulled by reward, it is pulled harder by reward that arrives unpredictably. Not every candle matters, not every scan pays off, not every check gives you anything, and that is exactly what keeps the loop alive. Because dopamine does not only respond to what arrived, it also responds to what might arrive. When the reward is uncertain, attention stays open, the search stays active, the hand does not want to leave the screen. That is why variable reward is so sticky. It does not just give the brain a hit, it gives the brain a reason to keep looking. And the reason this loop feels so natural is because the brain did not evolve in a world of charts. It evolved in a world where uncertainty could mean survival. Maybe the next area had food. Maybe the next signal meant danger. Maybe one more search changed the outcome. So the nervous system learned a simple rule. When the environment is uncertain, do not disengage too early. That rule once protected life. Now it can trap attention. Because modern platforms learn how to weaponize ancient search circuitry. The feed does it with endless content. The market can do it with endless possibility. And if you do not see that clearly, you will mistake captivity for curiosity. And this is the exact moment trading starts to degrade. Because once you enter that search state, you are no longer selecting quality. You are chasing possibility. You stop asking, is this my setup? And you start asking, what if the next one is the one? That shift destroys edge quietly, because edge is not built on constant checking. Edge is built on selective execution. The moment you cannot stop scanning, you are no longer reading the market with clarity. You are feeding a loop and calling it analysis. So the real question is not, am I still watching the chart? The real question is, has the chart learned how to keep me watching? And if the real question is, has the chart learned how to keep me watching? The next question is darker. What happens when watching turns into hunting? Because the trap doesn't end when you find the setup. That's where the trap changes shape. 1 second ago, you were just scanning candles, zones, liquidity, structure. Your brain was sampling information, but then price touches your level and instantly the nervous system changes state. Not gradually, not politely, instantly. The chart is no longer information. It becomes a possible reward, a possible escape, a possible repair. And the brain treats possibility like urgency. A prediction error spikes, dopamine rises, salience looks onto the screen, the setup feels louder than everything else, the plan becomes quieter, the risk becomes softer, the future becomes blurry, and inside the brain, control begins to migrate from the slow system to the fast system, from calculating to capture, from should I to do it now. This is where most traders misunderstand themselves. They think the problem is emotion, but emotion is not whole problem. The deeper problem is control allocation. Under high reward expectation and rising internal pressure, the brain starts prioritizing circuits built for actions. The nucleus accumbens, the striatum, the motor system, the old machinery of approach. At the same time, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the DLPFC, starts losing efficiency. This is the part of the brain that holds the trading plan online, position size, invalidation, risk to reward, long-term consequences, and that ability to say, no, not this one. But the PFC is expensive. It needs stable oxygen, a stable glucose, a stable arousal, and enough time to simulate the future. Now, the body is not in simulation mode, it is in capture mode. Arousal rises, catecholamine flood the system, attention narrows, working memory shrinks, and the cockpit starts losing power. Not because you forgot the rules, because the neural system that holds the rules is being pushed offline. This is the metabolic heist. The body doesn't ask what is the best decision. It asks what action reduces the tension right now. And this is the most painful part of PFC blackout. You still see the risk. You see the weak. You see the spread. You see that your stop is irrational. You see that this is not your A+ setup. So why do you still clip? Because seeing is not the same as vetoing. The visual cortex can detect danger, but detection is not inhibition. To stop the click, the brain needs a top-down signal from the prefrontal cortex to suppress the motor impulse. It needs the executive system to put hand on the hand. But when the DLPFC is weakened, the veto signal arrives too late, too weak, or not at all. That's why the experience feels so strange. You are not unconscious, you are watching yourself do it. A part of you knows, but the part that knows is not the part holding the mouse. This is why discipline alone fails. Because discipline is not a sentence you repeat. Discipline is a brain state, and when that state collapses, your rules become text on a wall inside a building with no electricity. The trader says, I knew I shouldn't enter. Exactly, you knew, but the system that converts knowing into stopping was offline. This is the frozen pilot. The plane is descending. The mountain is visible. The alarms are on, but the cockpit is dark. The pilot is not blind. He is disconnected. That is the trader in a PFC blackout. The chart is visible. The danger is visible. The consequence is visible. But the brake is gone. And then comes the click. One small movement, one mechanical sound. But biologically, it is not small. It is the final output of a nervous system that shifted from probability to pressure relief. The trade opens, and for a few seconds, there is relief. Not because the trade is good, because the tension has found an exit. Then the spike fades, the body settles, blood flow stabilizes, the prefrontal cortex comes back online and suddenly the room becomes quiet. You look at the position, you look at the size, you look at the entry, and the question arrives. Why did I do that? Here is the answer. Because the market didn't beat your edge. Your biology interrupted access to it. Your edge was still there. Your rules were still there. Your knowledge was still there. But in the moment of execution, the brain instinct required to use them was gone. So the solution is not more motivation. The solution is state protection. Because in trading, the real edge is not just what you know. It is whether the version of you who knows it is still online when the button appears. And that is why the next level of trading psychology is not emotional control. It is neural access control. Before you protect your capital, you have to protect the brain state that can protect it. To protect that state, you need more than willpower. You need a mechanical barrier. You need an operational protocol. A protocol isn't a suggestion. It's a circuit breaker for your biology. And you must understand one thing before we begin. The goal of a protocol is not to make you feel better. The goal is to prevent a compromised version of you from touching the capital. Because the most dangerous version of a trader is not the one who is angry. It is the one who is drifting away from their baseline state. This is why we implement the hard gate. Your first protocol is the unconditional cutoff. 3 consecutive wins or 3 consecutive losses and the session is over. Not because you've lost your skill, but because your neural chemistry has shifted. 3 wins trigger a phasic dopamine surge that can lead to overconfidence and risk softening. 3 losses trigger a threat response that prepares the brain for repair trading or revenge. You do not evaluate the market after the third result. You close the platform. You don't ask if there is one more setup. The hard gate is there to protect you from the prediction error loop that follows a streak. You are not quitting the market. You are protecting the version of you that knows how to trade it. The second protocol is the 5-minute silence. Immediately after closing the chart, you must enter a state of absolute non-action. 5 minutes, no phone, no checking the news, no looking at the P&L, no mental replay of the trade. You sit or you watch, but you do not consume information. Why? Because your brain is still vibrating from the reward or threat signal of the market. If you jump straight into scrolling or talking, you are simply transferring that nervous energy into another dopamine loop. You are not allowing the system to settle. This pause is a signal decoupling exercise. It forces the brain to exist without a feedback loop. It allows the catecholamine levels to begin their natural decay. In these 5 minutes of staring at a wall or just breathing, you are proving to your nervous system that you are no longer in capture mode. You are teaching your brain that the hunt is over. Until this silence happens, the PFC cannot fully come back online. The third protocol is the physiological downshift. This is where you use the body to hack the brain. You go to the sink and splash your face with cold water, specifically the area around your eyes and forehead. This isn't just to wake up. This triggers the mammalian dive reflex. It sends an immediate signal to the vagus nerve to slow down the heart rate and shift the nervous system from sympathetic dominance back to the parasympathetic balance. Then you perform intense muscular tension and release. Squeeze your feet and shoulders for 5 seconds, then drop them completely. Combine this with an exhale that is twice as long as your inhale. You are not doing this to feel relaxed. You are doing this to reallocate blood flow and neural priority. By lowering the internal noise of the body, you are clearing the path for the prefrontal cortex to regain its executive function. You are manually resetting the cockpit. You are telling your biology the threat has passed. The executive is back in charge. The protocol ends with a question, not a timer. You do not return to the screen because 5 minutes have passed. You return only when the return criterion is met. Can you explain your next setup without feeling your pulse in your throat? Can you accept the loss of the next trade without an emotional negotiation? Can you walk away right now if the market doesn't provide your exact A+ setup? If the answer is no, you stay away. Trading is the only profession where doing nothing is often the most profitable action you can take. Your edge is a fragile neural state. Protect the state, and the state will protect the capital. This is the difference between a gambler trapped in a scroll and a trader operating a system. The scroll trap ends when you stop trying to control the market and start mastering the architecture of your own decisions.